So, today we're diving into a story that's, well, it's way more than just a book. It's an unfinished novel called The Last of the Udege by Alexander Fadeev. But here's the thing, it's not just fiction. It's basically a witness statement to a real-life tragedy, one that just quietly happened in the huge taiga forests of the Far East. We're going to figure out how a story without an ending can actually tell us everything about a world that was completely wiped away.
Okay, so just try to picture this. It's 1815. Over in Europe, history is happening loud and clear, right? Maps are getting redrawn, everyone's buzzing about Napoleon, about Byron, it's the center of the universe. But at that exact same time, halfway across the world, in what might as well be a parallel dimension, deep in the Siberian taiga, a man named Masenda is born into the Udege people. Two worlds, same moment.
And that's why this matters so much, because one of those worlds, Masenda's world, is about to just vanish. And the big official story of history, the one with all the famous names, it's not even going to notice. It's like it never even happened. So today, let's go looking for the ghosts of that lost world.
All right, so to really get the tragedy of the novel's hero, this guy named Sarl, we first have to get to know his people. And I want to be clear, the Udege weren't some made-up tribe for a story. No, they were absolutely real, a real people with a whole world of their own.
They actually called themselves the Forest People. And that wasn't just, a cool nickname, it was everything. It was the core of who they were. See, they didn't just live in the forest, they were the forest. Shamanism, the whole cult of the tiger spirit, the hunt, it was all woven together into this one incredible, harmonious existence.
And this is really the heart of the novel. The author, Fadeev, he wasn't just writing some fantasy story about noble savages or anything like that. No way. He was a witness. He saw this world with his own two eyes. His book is basically him translating what he saw, real documents, real people's lives, as he watched their entire world just fall apart.
But here's the thing. Behind that beautiful, seemingly perfect culture, there was a terrifying reality brewing. A quiet disaster was unfolding, and almost nobody in the outside world had a clue. Smallpox just tore through their villages. Starvation was everywhere. Shady traders had them trapped in these impossible debts. Whole clans were just disappearing. Fadeev was writing about a quiet, almost invisible genocide happening in real time.
So right in the middle of this vanishing world is our hero, Sarl. And forget any stereotype you might have about a primitive savage. That's not him at all. Fadeev writes him as the spiritual heart of his people, almost like he's the last one carrying the memory of what their world was like before it all started to break. And Sarl's first brush with the Russian world, it completely flips the script on what you'd expect. A Russian worker, this guy Martemyanov, shows up, but he's not some powerful colonizer. He's wounded, weak, totally helpless. And who saves him? Sarl and the Udege. They're the ones who nurse him back to health. In that first encounter, they're the ones with all the power, all the skill.
So this Russian guy, Martemyanov, he ends up living with the Udege for 8 whole years. But then, when Sarl decides to go check out the Russian world for himself, it's a totally different story. He lasts a year and a half in a mine, and then he runs. The book is kind of vague on the details, but his escape, it says it all. He wasn't running from hard work, he was running from something that was just completely alien to his soul, a total rejection of that industrial, faceless hell.
And on his way back home, Sarl runs into someone. And this moment, this is the key to the whole tragedy. He meets the Tazi people. And they were a culture that had already lost itself. They weren't Udege, but they weren't really Chinese either. They were just stuck in the middle, belonging nowhere. And when Sarl looked at them, he saw the future of his own people. And it was absolutely terrifying.
But Sarl doesn't just crawl into a hole and give up. Nope, that terrifying vision, it actually sparks something in him. It gives him an idea, a dream. What if he could take just one thing, one tool from that other world to save his own?
So the first time Sarl ever sees a Chinese mill, Fadeev writes that he feels a tremor in his legs. I mean, think about that. This isn't some cold, calculated business idea. This is a deep, passionate, physical reaction. For him, that mill wasn't about becoming like the outside world. It was a tool, a weapon even, to save his own world.
And he's not looking for a handout, not at all. He starts studying the technology himself. He's up in the mountains, searching for the perfect kind of stone. He's literally trying to carve the massive millstones with his own 2 hands. And his goal?
It's so pure. He just wants to free the women in his clan from this backbreaking, endless work. He's trying to use technology to make his people stronger, to preserve them, not to erase them.
But then, this incredible, visionary dream just slams into a brick wall, a really harsh reality. See, Sarl gets it. He knows that to survive, they have to change. They have to start growing their own food, their own bread. But the elders, even his own father, they just can't get on board. For a people who'd been hunters for generations beyond counting, the idea of plowing the earth, it feels like a betrayal of everything they are.
And this right here, this brings us to the biggest mystery of all, the mystery of the book itself. Why would Fadiev work on this epic story for more than 10 years and then just stop? Why leave it unfinished? I mean, it's a huge question. Literary experts have puzzled over it for years. Why would you pour your soul into something for a decade and then just walk away? Well, the answer, it turns out, isn't in the pages of a book. It's in the pages of history. It's because Fadiev was a realist. And as a realist, he just couldn't write a happy ending that didn't exist. He couldn't invent a hopeful future for Sarl, because in the real world, there wasn't one. History had already written the ending, and it was a tragedy.
So what was the real ending? Well, it was the 1930s. It was collectivization. It was being forced off their ancestral lands. It was the government cracking down on their shamans, on their traditions. And finally, it was just assimilation, total erasure. Real life was just so much more powerful, and frankly, more brutal than any story Fadiev could have possibly made up. The final chapter was already set in stone.
So yeah, Fadiev's book might not have a last page, but life wrote the epilogue for him. And it's a quiet one, but it's absolutely crushing.
1,325. That's about how many Udege people are left today. That number, that's the epilogue. That's the final word on Sarl's story, on his dream of building that mill, and on the fate of an entire world.
And so in the end, we're left with this really big question, aren't we? Sarl's tragedy isn't just about one guy in a book. It's about a loss so profound you can't even measure it. It makes you think. When the last person who speaks a language dies, when a whole culture just blinks out of existence, what do we actually lose? We lose a totally unique way of seeing the world, a different way of feeling, of understanding everything. It's not just a culture that's gone, it's an entire universe, and it's gone forever.